Testing. 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 Hello. 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 Testing. Testing. Hello. Sound? Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I can move my back. It would be easier. I could probably just. I could probably just sit up. Is somebody going to play this Swami? Normally, they play over that.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know Swami's playing, so thank you, thank you. Oh, it's very heavy. It's very, very heavy. Yes. It's okay.
We can move the chairs a little bit, you know? So that's
Testing.
Colorado prison.
Oh, no.
Okay. I'm Sujata.
Hello, so nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
me too. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah. Hello. So I think it's working.
Can you see?
I'm speaking.
Yes, it is.
Holy man, good to see you. Oh my God, you have to do it. I told Debbie just now, she wants to be sociable and not be a elder, she's gotta be present. Let's put this. Here to the place. Oh, yeah. My glasses. Nice. See. When you keep these or? Cause I think it's cute. Like I have to go home and like read it and learn it.
Yeah, I know, this is the first time, yeah. Does this have a pedal? Let's see, not here. Let's take a look over here, because I would think it would have a pedal, like a piano type instrument. Um, Right, a stand and a pedal. It should have both of these. There is that not a stand next to the guitar?
Sure.
I don't.
Is that?
Do you play a harmonium, Swami? Do you play harmonium? Well, mother's hinting at me, didn't want.
If we can get a
It's like my guitar playing days are over, so I was thinking, maybe I could play a harmonium.
Yeah.
It's when I, it's just. So I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. It does, without.
Oh, so then perhaps a stand to push the music on.
I was gonna look up the name.
Can you find the?
All right. Now, let's take a wet.
This is. Let's.
You know what? I just. Just these. And, oh, so it.
Very mindful,
Right?
yeah. Yeah. Well, no, not
How
all.
do
I
we
mean,
put it inside?
it's like I'm
this
deaf,
way?
kind of on my right side. We're not totally deaf, we're pretty close. So that was, if you put it all closed, you might, this would not, that's.
Okay.
So used to, brother used to say, you know. We kind of, we had unofficial scene.
Okay, I want to start that too.
No, it's good. I'm over, it's good now, it's good.
Oh, because we need to grab it. You did not steal this. Yes, the next one. That's your motion.
That is rough. Okay, I surrender.
That's almost the original Star Trek's the original series. Yes, they go to a planet. It's at war with another planet. They're doing it all with computers, so they don't actually have problems. It's really silly uniforms. It's just they got this big cats that are square at the top. They really look stupid. You have to see. Are you in charge?
Yeah, just point to everywhere. Well, I still do, I just don't see it.
No, it's very, yeah, it's called the elevated bed. And.
Maybe it's the official.
Oh, this is called. Because what happens is they do it to the something.
Yeah, you seems like you have four.
I'll just change.
Yes, yeah, I'll be able to.
And I have an annual pass.
So we're gonna.
Good morning, everyone. Our meeting begins with a recollection of our relation to the universal being and our purpose here. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the divine being, may the divine being, may we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all.
Okay, I have the privilege of introducing our Swami. This is Swami Chidbrahmananda. He joined the order in 1999 and he took his sannyasi vows in 2012. He was a member of the San Francisco Center for 14 years and the Hollywood Center for 12 years. While being a member of the Hollywood Center, he physically was located in Washington, D.C. for 8 years. And that's where I came to know the Swami because I was on a project where I traveled to Washington, D.C. to physically work there. And I spent a lot of time at the Vedanta Center in Greater Washington, D.C. while I was there. And then COVID hit. I'm fully remote, but that's where I got to know the Swami, was in D.C., where in addition to giving lectures, he also ran a free clinic. And he had to learn Spanish because many of the people coming to the free clinic was Hispanic. He's now doing an experimental project in Colorado where he he's proposed a new Vedanta philosophy that doesn't represent any religion whatsoever.
Vedanta Center. I'm not inventing new Vedanta.
They're proposing that it doesn't represent any religion. In other words, they help Christians to become better Christians and Hindus to become better Hindus and Muslims to become better Muslims. And it's called the One Spirit Center. And I find that intriguing and I'm happy to visit their center.
All right, I'm going to share a song that is adapted from The Lord is a Flame by Dadu, translated by Swami Chidbrahmananda, who was one of the early Swamis at the San Francisco Center. If you sing along as you like. This is a new keyboard, so I don't know any of its nuances, so I apologize ahead of time. I've seen that land for no season. Where all is joy. I have seen the land without fear or fall. I have seen that land without name. I come from that land of light without sun or moon. I come from the land beyond the I've seen the land beyond my border. Beyond earth and sky. Enter there and ceaselessly away. Enter there and Christ will never come. Lose yourself in love. On the infinite and free. I come from the land where the Lord always shines. To the land Okay. All right, hopefully that's all it takes.
Would you like to see the people, Swami?
Me?
Yeah.
Sure,
To
sure.
see if you
Whatever's
can, and
normal.
you can put it on gallery view.
I can't really
Girish,
see
so
it
that he
anyway.
can see all the people rather than himself.
I don't want to be the first Swami to call for makeup, but all right. Well, good morning, everyone. God, you don't know what a journey it's been for me to eventually get here. I mean, I have known Shankara at this center for a long time. I've heard many things about this center for a long time. I've spoken with the center several times over the years and just never made it here. And what a delightful surprise it was to come here and find it to be everything my heart would have thought it was. What a beautiful center. How nicely kept, how well thought out it is, and what a beautiful space. In Colorado, I rent a room in a house, and a very small house. Actually, I live in a coal miner's town, so all the houses are these little, I haven't seen a house here yet as small as the ones in Lafayette. They were all made for coal miner families, so they're very, very, very tiny. Usually 1 or 2 bedrooms, and the bedrooms are like 8 by 8, or 8 by 10. And a very, very humble place. And so it's wonderful to come here and just have a space I can wander and go back and forth in and see a cat every now and then. And just be here. I'm in a very exciting time in my life that I'm very excited to share with you. Many things have happened. Many things have been learned. An immense amount of inspiration has been my fortune to share in the last 2 years. Like you mentioned, I'm out in Colorado doing an experiment with the permission of Bellarmine. It's been in building in my mind. It's not finished yet. Even in my mind, it's not finished yet. I'm still waiting to see what Mother is up to. But it began to occur to me with some of the things I was thinking. This is all just talking right now. We're not quite into the talk yet, but the experiment is really around the idea of, well, what was Thakur's vision? Why was he here, and what was he going to do? There's the little pieces that I've gathered over the years that I've shared with some people that just don't fit with the puzzle, that lead me to believe that there's another chapter that's going to open at some point. And that's when Ramakrishna, or it's said by Vivekananda that Ramakrishna never intended to start a new sect. He never wanted to have a group of Ramakrishnians running around. It's said of him that people of all different traditions came to him for teaching. And the startling part is that he says that all of them believed he belonged to their own tradition when they left. And then when Vivekananda came here and gave his very first lecture at the Parliament of Religions, he said, I do not come here that a Christian become a Hindu, or that a Hindu become a Muslim. He said, God forbid. I come here that a Christian might be a better Christian, a Hindu a better Hindu, a Muslim a better Muslim. And I put all of those things together, and I thought, wow, I don't know any place that Christians and Muslims and Hindus are going to become better Christians, Muslims, or Hindus. I got very curious, and I just laid it at Mother's feet. I thought, is there something we haven't seen yet? Is there something we haven't done yet? And so I was talking to Swami Sarvadevananda, and he asked me to write up a little description of the thoughts that were running through my head, and that he would forward that to Bellarmine with a note to see if they were interested in that. And so it's hard to know, because I don't have a vision, and I'm forbidding myself from forming a vision lest ego seep into it. So I've really been practicing listening. Just doing a lot of listening, and sort of what's unfolded so far in Colorado. We have an online group with 5 classes going every week, and those have stayed steady and grown over the last 2 years. There's not a lot of locals coming to that, and so I just kind of listened in and thought, well, this is going direction at this point. And so what we started doing was just finding out where the people that are coming to the online classes are living. And I would find groups of 3 or 4 of them that were within a radius together, make arrangements to go there and do a weekend retreat once or twice a year to meet with them. And then we opened up also a WhatsApp Sangha, so that everybody that comes to the classes can have a place to share notes and findings and socialize, using company. And that has worked really well. About 6 months ago, we started our local meetings, in-person meetings in the house there. And they've grown to about between 8 and 12 people on Sundays. And it's a whole day program for those who want to make it a whole day program. We leave lots of exits for people to leave when they need to. But we get together in the morning, and the way that we've structured it, because we don't want to present as any particular religion. We want it to be available to whoever's there. So instead of myself giving a lecture on Sunday mornings there, everybody who comes gets a period of time, hopefully not longer than 10 minutes. Most of them stay between 2 and 5 minutes, for them to share something that they learned, or something that they've read, or something that they saw that inspired them, or what they're doing in their practice, or an insight that they've had. They share that with the group, and everybody gets a chance to do that. And what that does is it enables me to find out what the traditions present are, and where the people are coming from who are coming there. And so when it comes to be my turn, I gave myself the longest period of time to speak, and I try and summarize what everybody else has said. And then to kind of bring it under the Vedanta umbrella, kind of open it up, give it its space, give it some of its depth, and show that all of this has a space within the Vedanta. The Vedanta does not counter any of the traditions, that it fits safely within all of them. And that's worked very well so far. And when we finish, we all cook a big lunch together and sit down and have our lunch. And after lunch, we clean up together, and then we walk to Lake Wanaka and take a loop around the lake if the weather permits, and then get back. And by the time all that's finished, it's 30 or 4 o'clock, and people will either stay for a cup of coffee and or head on home as they like, because we want to create sort of give people as much as they can take, as much as they're willing to take on a Sunday, and make it an outing, that's got a little bit of something for everyone. And while moving in that direction and while being a part of this, I've really learned to be quiet. I've really learned to shut down my own mind and my own vision and my own ideas, and just listen to everything. Everybody that has come to the center so far has come organically. Just meeting someone or having a conversation, or my neighbor. One of the most interesting ones, that my neighbor right next door is a woman who gardens all the time, and my window in my room, it was open all summer long, 24/7. And so she overheard all of my classes. She was a garden. And one day I was I went out the front door to head off to an appointment, and she was out front, and she came over to me and she said, are you the one that lives in the room in the back corner? And I was like, yes. She said, I hope this doesn't sound weird, and I don't want it to get uncomfortable, but I've been listening to your classes and have really enjoyed what's being said. Is it possible to come to something you're doing? And I was like, oh yeah. It's like, oh yeah, no, Sundays we meet for Sundays. And so our neighbors started coming that way. And it's in that way. So there's been no proselytizing. There's no, of course, Vedanta needs no conversion, because Mother has everyone exactly where she wants them, and everyone is growing at exactly the right pace for their place in life. And so we don't interfere with that. Our goal really is to be available for when Mother thinks we can be helpful. Our mission unofficially at the center is to help those who come here for help in the way that they think we can help them. So we leave it wide open and undefined, with the hopes that just some good love will take us forward in the right direction. So this morning's talk, Escaping the Mind, Tools for Seeing the Divine, These are some of the ideas that I've used in the last year to kind of prepare my own self for this, because you know, it's a rather bold thing to propose something new and to place yourself in a way in that path. And it's a dangerous thing to do for me as a monk, you know, for egoism and for just the pride that can arise in that sort of situation. So I've really had to tailor my practice. It's not really true, actually. I didn't tailor my practice, but to kind of sit in my practice and learn to listen, learn to shut up and not promote my ideas, as not to build a course for the center, but to hear, just to hear the movement of things. So I'm going to start here with some things that Eckhart Tolle says in The Power of Now. I don't know if you've read that book. It took me a good 15 years before I was willing to read that book, because I'm very conservative in the things I let into my mind, especially in the spiritual realm. And when I first heard some of his lectures on disc, I just, for whatever reason, it hit me in the wrong way. So I just didn't look at it for 10 years. And then someone mentioned this book, somebody that I respected and really trusted said that this was a really great book. So I dug into it, and indeed, I found some amazing things in here. Nothing new in the sense of a teaching, but very new in the way he talks about it, the way he speaks about it, in a way that really opened me up. You know, he didn't use the Vedanta lingo, he didn't use Sanskrit terms, he didn't fall into that thing. He just put it out there, kind of like a therapist or someone speaking something very mundane. So he says, on a level, I speak of a profound transformation of human consciousness, not as a distant future possibility, but available now, no matter who or where you are. You are shown how to free yourself from enslavement to the mind, enter into this enlightened state of consciousness, and how to sustain it in everyday life. Now, I really like this because it really reminds us we have this moment. We don't have a future and we don't have a past. We've only got this moment to work with. And so your enlightenment already exists in this moment, already complete. You just have to find it within yourself by pulling out of mind, is where we'll get to in a little bit here. By pulling out of mind and establishing yourself in the heart, right? And that it happens now, and it's not conditioned on who you are or where you are. He goes on to say, what is the greatest obstacle to experiencing this reality? He says, identification with your mind, which causes thought to become compulsive. Not to be able to stop thinking is a dreadful affliction. But we don't realize this because almost everybody is suffering from it. So it's considered normal. This incessant mental noise prevents you from finding that realm of inner stillness that is inseparable from being. It also creates a false mind-made self that casts a shadow of fear and suffering in our lives. Right? So the incessantness of the mind, you know, well, within us, we have, there's a couple of interesting things. We started to talk about this last night, actually, in a conversation, that religion doesn't happen on a line. You know, they say that enlightenment is the only effect that has no cause to it. So it's a matter of grace. It's always a matter of the grace of the divine. Like Saint John of the Cross kind of draws this beautiful image that it's ours to get to the chasm, to the edge of the chasm, but we do not have the power to cross over that chasm ourselves. And so he says, well, what are we supposed to do then with life? And he says, go to the edge of the chasm and wait, and create in your heart, in your shrine, a beautiful bridal chamber. You know, he has this image of God, of Jesus, the bridegroom, coming to meet him and Mary for that union, right? That oneness. And so he says that really spiritual life is not about attaining something. It's about being there with the faith and knowledge that in your divine oneness, you've been betrothed, you've been to the Lord for that union, and that is coming. And so all you have to do now is decorate your bridal chamber
You know, make it the most beautiful, most comfortable, most loving and sweet place, so that when your lover comes, when the beloved arrives, you open the door and you're ready. You're ready to go, ready to be taken across that chasm into that freedom. But it also takes us off of this line of expectation. You know, I'm afraid that many of us in our practice, in our spiritual lives, have placed an ideal day in the future somewhere where we'll see something or understand something or get something that we don't have now and experience our enlightenment on this great day in the future. And so all of our practice becomes a grasping and a reaching for something that we have placed outside of ourselves that's going to fulfill ourselves. And the problem with that is that is the same recipe as any desire for anything outside of ourselves. The only difference between a worldly person and a spiritual person is that a worldly person believes that something is wrong with the moment and that something outside of themselves is going to fix that. So they go looking for their pleasures or go looking for their ideas or go looking for their fulfillment. The spiritual man or woman knows that the moment is perfect, that there is nothing to change in this moment, and therefore practices a non-resistance and an acceptance. And according to Suzuki in his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he said that the Buddhist does not sit to realize God. The Buddhist sits to know that he is already realized. So it takes your imagined day out of the future and places it into the only thing you've ever had, which is this moment. This is the same moment that Jesus occupied. It's the same moment that Buddha sat in. It's the moment that Krishna danced with the gopis in. And this moment is that I am. This moment is the divine. It is God. And your experience of this moment is your relationship with the beloved, the divine. And you can always know where you stand by how you are in this moment. Are you content? Are you restless? Is something missing? Are you not seeing something? Are you fulfilled? Are you full of love? Are you on the verge of ecstasy? You know, all signs that you are with the beloved. And our practice is not a doership. It's not a doing. Because enlightenment is the only effect that has no cause, that tells you immediately it's nothing that you're going to do that's actually going to end, that's going to create an enlightenment, right? There is no you doing for that. And this falls very much in line, right, with what Ramakrishna says in the gospel, that you are not the doer. And so the fact that we sit there and we sit in our meditation with the idea that I'm meditating and that the idea that I have to clean up my mind, I have to calm my mind, I have to become more virtuous, I have to be better. All of these narratives, and narratives always belong to egoism. Narratives always are trapped in time. They're not free in the moment, you know, a moment that has no past, because past is purely conceptual, and no future because future is purely projected. There's nothing there. There's only this moment. So this moment, it's ours to realize that we're already realized. But how does that happen? Or, you know, why does that happen? It's because within you, just like as the universe, it has both the absolute unchanging, Brahman, right? That one without a second. There's also this power projection or this movie showing on the screen. There's not just the screen, there's the movie showing on it. This divine mother, Shakti, right? And within us, both of those aspects are there. Because Vivekananda says what? That the microcosm and the macrocosm are one. You know, the one is within the other. It's a fractal. So wherever you are in that fractal, you've got the whole story. You just have to see it. You have to understand it. And so that's what we do. When we go into our practice, we don't have to clean ourselves up. The Divine Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, in her book, Sri Sharda Devi and Her Divine Play by Chaitanananda, Mother says it's not the baby's responsibility to change its diaper and to clean itself up. That's the mother's responsibility to take care of that, right? And what does the baby do? The baby just tries to stay as still as it can on the table while mother does her thing. And that is your practice. That is your practice. Your practice is not to do, not to accomplish, not to get to, not to attain, not to grab, not to improve. Your meditation is to place yourself in the divine presence consciously. and to develop a faith that's deep enough to understand something you've never seen in your life before, an unconditioned love, a grace that is absolutely enough for you. And using that grace and using that notion, that meditation on this unconditioned love allows you to undo all of your chains inside that are based on grief, based on guilt, based on shame, based on fear. To let go of all of those things one by one as you sit there and absorb the idea of a love that has no condition, a grace that is infinitely deep and infinitely sweet. And in that forgiveness of yourself, and in that release of all of your troubles, and in that faith in that one thing you've never seen, you find your freedom. You find release from your karma. Right? Because it's your mind that holds your karma. It's not God. We know this in 1 Corinthians 13. Love keeps no record of wrongs. And God, from 1 John, is love. Right? The nature of God is Ananda, is bliss, is love. And so love is not interested in your wrongs. It's not keeping a record of your wrongs. So where does that happen? It happens in your mind. You are the one that keeps track of what's in your wrongs. And it's your ego that makes sure you pay for it, that makes sure you work through your karma. And your ego will not release you because your ego is your identity. It's the result of you attaching to your mind, of you saying, I am a body, I am a mind. And the desires of my body are my desires. The desires and longings of my mind are my desires and longings. And so that places you, that takes you out of the point of the moment, right? And puts you on the line, puts you on a line of delusion, a line that has a past, right? Your past, your collection of attachments, the past is the things you didn't want to let flow through the moment. They are things that you wanted to keep and you wanted them to be immortal. So you grabbed them and you shared with them your immortality by placing them in your memory, right? And then that past becomes lens through which you view the present. It's your attachments that disallow you from finding comfort right now because you remember that ice cream, you remember that pizza, you remember that date, you remember whatever it is that floats through the mind that then makes the moment look like it's lacking something. And if the moment is lacking something, you want to go get it. And what do you need in order to manifest your attachment in the moment? You need a future, right? So you create a future so that you can form a plan of how you're going to get that money to afford that piece of pizza. And we get stuck in that cycle, bouncing from our attachments over to our desires, back to our attachments, back to our desires. And what are we jumping over the whole time? The present, the moment, God, the very existence of God in our life, the existence of the beloved in our life, or the existence of the ultimate reality, if you are uncomfortable with names of God, right? And so we get stuck in that way. So this is what causes the mind to wobble, to get out of balance. He says, identification of your with your that, thinking that the mind is you and its narratives are you. And I'm always warning people about the narratives because your ego is just a narrative, right? It's a narrative that you hold on to as being true. I have to do this, I have to get that, I have to be this, I have to go there. All of these narratives, and you say, well, what exactly is that? A narrative is when somebody asks me and they say, they start off by, meditation is so difficult and it's impossible for me to calm my mind. What can I do? That's how they frame the question. And I go to them and I say, whoa, 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 whoa. If you frame your narrative that way, that's your suffering. If you say to meditate is difficult and I can't control my mind, if that's how you view it and you sit down to meditate, if you start there every time, where are you going to get? You've made it impossible to calm your mind. You've made it too difficult for yourself to meditate. So exactly what's going to happen? Your narrative is going to ruin your life. It's going to prevent you from experiencing the greatest joy possible in this world, right? And so you have to be careful about the way you define your world. Even if your ego thinks it has plenty of evidence to say it, you have to remember you're not the mind. So you say, yes, the mind is restless, it's constantly changing. But I'm right? Pull yourself out of the mind. And you say, if I'm not the mind, I'm not interested in what it's doing. Now, why wouldn't you be interested in doing it? Because your discernment has shown you that your mind is simply an organ that secretes thought, and that every thought is born directly out of the previous thought. And even at this moment, you cannot have a thought unrelated to thought. You cannot do it. And so this idea that this is your mind and that you're creating the thought and that expressing yourself in the mind is a lie. The mind is an organ secreting a thought based on senses, based on contents of mind, based on whatever. It's just secreting thought one after the other. And the thing that creates your narrative, as soon as you go through that little buffet line and you're like, oh, I like that one. Oh, I hate that one. I want two of these ones, and pop them over there. And you spend your time dealing with your mind in that way. The problem with that is, as long as you're identified with that mind, you're living a life where you're in the swimming pool trying to calm the waves. You can't calm the waves while you're in the pool. While you're identified with mind, you can't calm the mind. The mind only calms when you lose interest in it. And the only way you lose interest in it is through discernment, the understanding that you are not the mind. And how do you do that? Well, in your discernment, you're going to recognize right away that the mind has to talk to you. You don't know what your thoughts are unless you look at them, right? You don't know what mood you're in until the mind tells you. You don't know how you feel about things until you query, right? And if something can be observed like that by you and looked at like that, if you can come to understand that you are the watcher of your thoughts, then by necessity, you are not your thoughts. And when you really establish yourself in that, you're able to let go and escape that cycle, get out of the pool. And then you see that it doesn't matter whether the mind calms or not. You know that you're not the mind, so you're not being affected by it. And with the body, it's the same thing. You don't know that you're sick until the body tells you, right? We all have those ways that our body tells us. For me, it's that weird taste in the back of my mouth. That's usually the first sign that something's awry in there. You get that taste, or I get that pressure behind my eyes. If it's like a head cold or something, I'm like, oh God, here it comes, right? And the next day, sure enough, step 2 comes step 3, and you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, I can't go out today. It's just awful. The fact that your body has to report to you, the fact that the body has to give you signals about its situation, is all the evidence that you need to know that you are not the body. And then you add to that this whole experience of life, right? I'm turning 60 in a month. I'm telling everybody so that I can slowly deal with it in public. I'm turning 60 next month, and I'm like, there's nothing about my experience of being that is 60 years old. There's just nothing there. It's not till I try to get out of bed or stand up off of a chair or, bend over to tie my shoe. There's nothing in my experience aside from those external things that tell me, oh my God, I'm 60, right? Inside, I haven't aged. I remember that same child that couldn't wait for puberty, sitting in my mind. I remember how excited I was at one point that someday, when you're dreaming about being a man, you're like, oh, I can't wait to shave for the first time. I was so excited, like I said, I guess I shouldn't get into all the details. But I remember being that, and I'm still that, and I'm still watching my body. Every morning I look in that mirror and I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? Right? Everything melts. Everything's going toward the ground. Every aspect of me is melting, even my hair, but it's not growing. It's just sort of doing the direct route, falling. Going straight for the ground, right? And this is the experience of aging. And the beauty of this is when you know that you're not the body, when you know that you're not the mind, when you've emphasized the real feeling that you have inside, that you're not growing old, when you establish that through your practice, right? Then aging becomes humorous. It becomes a rather fun experience, just watching it all happen and being bewildered by it. And then thinking about dying. To me, dying has changed from being a great fear of mine because I've actually practiced dying. I sometimes, with some regularity, not frequently, I don't want to be morbid, but with some regularity, When I'm lying in bed, I will try to imagine that it's my deathbed, that I'm never going to get out of this bed again. And the reason I do that is to try and find in my moment a space within me where that's okay. To sit there and find within me a space that could accept that. And I'm not going to leave this bed. The body's going to stay here and I'm going to leave it. And I just ask myself, am I okay with that? Just checking in. Are you all right? And then you're like, oh, there's a little bit of fear there. Oh, what is that fear? Let's look at it, right? And work through these things. And come to the point where when you come to that deathbed, you're like, oh yeah, I've been here before. Yeah, I'm ready for this. And you sit down because why? Because you found the shrine within, right? And you've established yourself in that shrine where you observe the mind and you observe the body. And this is your bridal chamber. And when that body begins to drop, your beloved's going to appear. And you're going to go away from this place. To where? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Anywhere that divine love takes you is going to be beautiful. So you surrender into it. Take me, Mother. I've practiced surrender my whole life. I've asked you to take care of me in every way. I've handed you the keys to everything I've wanted in my life and surrendered to you. And now I continue that. Let's go. Take me where you were taking me. Show me what you can show me. The philosopher Descartes believed that he had found the most fundamental truth when he made his famous statement, I think, therefore I am. He had, in fact, given expression to the most basic error, to equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. The compulsive thinker, which means almost everyone, lives in a state of apparent separateness in an insanely complex world of continuous problems and conflict, a world that reflects the ever-increasing fragmentation of the mind. Enlightenment is a state of wholeness, of unity of mind, one voice, no multiplicity, of being at one and therefore at peace, at one with life in its manifested aspect, the world, as well as your deepest self and life unmanifested, at one with being. Enlightenment is not only the end of suffering and of continuous conflict within and without, but also the end of the dreadful enslavement to incessant thinking. What an incredible liberation this is. Right? And so you see within you, you've got both Shiva, the unchanging, dwelling here in the heart, beyond mind, below mind, under the waves, right? And up here, you've got Shakti, the mind, the constant changing, the constant flow of unrepeating change that is the world, the power of God. Everything that you're seeing at this moment, it's always important to know that the reason that the condition of your mind is so important is because that's where you are, mind. Thakur says, mind is everything. What does that mean? It means it's everything. And I'm always insecure about bringing up this next little bit because I talk about this all the time and I get afraid that people have overheard it. But the point is, we live in a mind. We don't live in a world. There is no material world. Never was. How do you know that? Because you've never seen it, right? Right now you're looking at me. What are you actually seeing? Because that's entering your eyes doesn't make it past the back of your eye socket. It stops there. It never gets to your mind. It never makes it to the brain. What comes to the brain? An encoding of biochemical information, right? So your brain never gets to see what actually it's looking at. It just gets the interpretation of the eye instrument into information. And from that information, your mind has created this world. It's created a symbol of what the eye is, what it assumes the eye is seeing. It creates a symbol for what it assumes the ear is hearing. And you'll say, no, I'm seeing the world, the external world with my eyes. Like, no, the eye is as much a symbol for the source of sight as the ear is for the source of sound. They're just symbols in the mind. There is no way to validate an external world, which is a very good thing because the scriptures say there is no external world. There is only internal. This entire experience, Vivekananda says, remember, he says, I am not in Alameda, which is a city in the Bay Area. He says, I'm not in Alameda. Alameda is in me, right? Because he understood that he doesn't live in a world, a material world, that he lives in a mind, and that the same mind stuff that creates the dream is used to interpret the information coming from the ears, coming from the eyes, the nose, coming from the body. Right? So dream world, it's of the same nature as the dream. So that there's not wood in this world, even though there's wood in my dream at this moment. What is this? It's consciousness, it's mind stuff, it's God. And everything around me is made of that same stuff, right? When you're in a dream at night, you're going to see mountains, you're going to see trees, you're going to see water, you're going to breathe air. But no, you're in the mind only at sleep. But you're going to see all of those things and experience all those things, going to know it's in your waking experience. And if you've ever had a lucid dream, you know that that's the case, that the world exists within you. I've had two lucid dreams. One I was in San Francisco, and I just remember as I was being chased. I was being chased. I couldn't help but see all of the detail in that dream, all of the things that were there, right? But they're not as they seem. They're a single substance, mind stuff, that is presenting as a tree, that is presenting as water. And the cool thing is you can go and study that water in your dream, and you'll find the molecules, and you'll find all of the information all the way down. That water in your dream will never betray to you that it's not water. It will look like water as close and as hard as you want to look at it. But in reality, what is it? It's consciousness. Right? And how are you seeing it? Consciousness. Because there's no light in your dream. There's no sun in your dream. Right? And so it is in the waking state as well, because we're still just taking encoded information and interpreting it. And the mind is building the world in real time for you to experience. And so this light that you're looking at there is not a light coming from a light bulb, because you can't see that light bulb. It's out somewhere. We don't know where it is. So what do you see? You're seeing the light of consciousness, right? The light of consciousness that lights your dream and lights the world. And that light of consciousness, what is it? Eckhart Tolle says it's love. Eckhart Tolle says that was one of his first realizations in his enlightenment experience, was that light and love were the same thing. And I drew from that a wonderful meditation, to sit there in the sunlight, to sit there in the light of this room, and to know that this is the love of the beloved. I have no doubt of it. If I ever forget the presence, I remember I'm sitting in light, and that light is the love of my beloved embracing me at every angle. And I see that, and I never forget that. Sitting at the desk lamp at night, looking at the glow of my iPad at night. It's all the constant reminder that God is love, and I am that, surrounded, inundated, rested, and content. And I remember my moment. This is the beloved, the I am, right? The name of God in the Old Testament, the name that Jesus claimed for himself, ego eimi, in Aramaic. I am. This moment is God, your being God. So I can't resist saying that you get 3 continual love letters from God at every moment. They're always there for you to read. What are they? Satchitananda, right? As long as you can feel and express love, you can know that that's coming from the book. As long as you exist, you know that you belong to the beloved. As long as you can learn from your mistakes and think, that's borrowing God's intelligence. She has loaned that to you in this moment to enjoy, to use, right? To use in this life. And use it for what? For manifesting it. You always have to remember you live on a point. You don't live on a line. There is no past or future. There's only this moment, and this moment is eternal. It has no beginning and no end to it. It's the only thing that's infinite that you will experience in this material world, because it's the presence of God in the world, right? Playing his part as you. So you have this Shiva and this Shakti within you. As long as you place your identity up here because you're amazed at the constant flow of change and flicker and glamour and light and problem and struggle and all of the misengagement of thinking, you're not paying attention to what's behind you because you're just mesmerized. Wow, life. Here I am in life. How do you get out of that? Well, you discern, right? How do you discern? You say, well, I came into this world with nothing, and I'm going to leave with nothing. So quite obviously, the point of this life is not getting something. I come with nothing and leave with nothing. So the point of life is not an attainment or a getting. What is it then? I don't know. I have to come up with my own purpose. Well, how do you fit a purpose into a moment? You can only fit a purpose into a line where you have a past, a present, and a future, and something that you have to get to. You don't have a line to live on. You only have this moment. What purpose or narrative are you going to fit into this moment? None of them. There is no purpose to life in that, on that order. There is no meaning to life in that way. What is the meaning for you? What is life about? About the expressing your nature. Satchitananda, expressing your love, expressing your wisdom, all through your being, all through this opportunity of existence. So how do you have a fulfilling life? Fulfill your nature. Find out what your nature is. Of course, I can tell you your nature is Satchitananda. It's love, wisdom, and being. That's all you are. And as long as you're living a life that's expressing love, expressing wisdom through your being, you'll be fulfilled. You'll find your strength. You'll find yourself. There'll be no dependence on things that are outside of your reach. There'll be no longing for something you're missing. In the gospel, Ramakrishna says, God is real as soon as the mind becomes free from attachment. Whatever appears in the pure mind, right? The mind with no me or mine in it. The pure mind is the voice of God. This changed my life. This sentence right here, I had read it many times in the gospel, but it never hit me until I was in a situation sitting in Colorado wondering, Mother, what do I do? That was my first problem. You know, I got there that night, my first time out of the monastery in 25 years, that I was now having to pay for somehow, without a job. I had no arrangements made. I didn't know how that all was going to happen. And I had lots of things I needed to pray for. But I told Mother, I said, Ma, you know, I don't know how to hear you. How do I know what to do? I can pray my ears off, but I don't know how to hear the answer. And it was the next day that I read this in the gospel. Whatever appears in the pure mind is the voice of God. And I understood. I need to become the greatest listener in the world. I need to stop thinking and stop narrating and stop creating a story that belongs on a line, and to inhabit this moment and free my mind of all of the notions and narratives that egoism depends on, and sit there in silence. And I've learned that Mother talks to us through a knowing. She doesn't talk through a voice. She doesn't talk to you through a sentence, because all of those violate what Mother is. Right? The God, the reason that we can't think of this, we can't name God in a true way, is because God cannot in any way fit into the mind, cannot, right? Because the mind requires 3 triads for anything that it thinks about. What are those 3 triads? Time, space, causation. If you don't have time, space, and causation, the mind can't conceive of it, right? Subject, object, verb. Mind requires that. Language requires that. You can't talk about something without a subject, an object, and a verb. God is not that. So God cannot be talked about. God cannot fit in the mind. And what's the other 3rd triad? Past, present, future. There is no past, present, future. Right? God, it does not work on line. We place him on it. We subject him to time. But God is outside of time. And outside of time is not a long time. It's outside of time. Time has nothing to do with it. So God cannot be pulled into the mind. You cannot, God, your salvation, your religion, It doesn't, this is not going to do it. This is not. This is the power of God for manifesting things and stuff and ideas and whatnots there, right? But you can't see your why because he's sitting here. So you have to detach from mind. What does detaching from mind mean? It means stop thinking that it's you that's thinking. It means stop saying that that thought has something to do with me. Understand that the mind just produces thought, and those thoughts are produced. You only give them power when you touch them and say, me, mine, right? Those two things cause attachment. That's me, that's mine. Now what happens when you attach to a thought with me or mine? You share your Satchitananda with it, right? It's not an existence. How do you know that? Because it'll argue with you, right? You attach to it the thought of cake. I love cake, right? So you sit there and you're like, oh, but I'm getting fat. I'm not going to have a piece of cake. Well, if you're not attached, nothing's going to argue with you because there's only one person in here, right? Thinking is absurdity. Why is thinking absurdity? Because the talker and the listener are coming from the same source. Think about it. Right? You'll see the absurdity of a noisy mind. You don't learn things that way. You can construct thought castles, but thought castles don't have inhabitants. There's nothing there. Right? So that's not the direction to go. So detach. Why do you want to detach? So that you can maintain a singular voice inside. So that when you say, no, I'm not going to have any cake, there's not a conundrum of arguments coming up from all these attachments inside there. Right? You're not attached, so they're not empowered. They don't have an existence. They don't have a love. They don't have a wisdom to them. So you let them go. And in that silence, what do you experience? The voice of God, a communion with the beloved, a comfort, a knowing, not in words, much deeper than words, much more meaningful than words, much more complete than words. Right? This is what happens in a spiritual experience. That's why you never forget them. That's how you know if you've had a real spiritual experience. It never fades. It always remains at its highest resolution because it doesn't come through the mind or the senses. It comes directly from that which is in here already, the beloved. And it's just a knowing, an entirety dropped into place, and suddenly you know. As if you've always known. As if somebody just uncovered you that you had never seen before. This is the voice of the beloved. It comes from within. It doesn't come from without or from the mind. It's not a thought about a voice of God. Whatever appears in the pure mind is the voice of God. That which is pure mind is also pure buddhi. That again is pure Atman, because there is nothing pure but God. But in order to realize God, one must go beyond dharma and adharma, light and darkness, good and evil, the duality, right? Because where does that duality come from? It comes from your attachments. If you don't have a singular voice inside, you'll never experience the oneness. You'll never experience the Advaita. You've got to the duality that you've created between thinker and listener inside. You've got to take back the Satchitananda that you've shared with all of these thoughts that are now an army of voices in your head that argue with you at every turn. What time you're going to get up, how long you're going to stand in the shower, whether you're going to get a new job or not, what color sweater to put on today. You know, all of these different things. If you've got all of these attachments, your thinking is such a struggle, right? And you end up telling a Swami, oh, I can never calm my mind. It's impossible. I can't meditate at all. Yes, you can. You have to take back the power. You have to stop sharing your existence, your love, and your wisdom with every thought that appeals to your body or mind. Let go of them. And then they shut up. And when they shut up, what do you have? Oh, some blessed peace. The kids have gone to bed. Yeah. They find the last ones out of the house. Oh my God, it's big in here. Right? These things like that. So this me and mine, this attachment to things, to thoughts, it's impossible. Actually, there's only thoughts. There are no things in the world. Things are thoughts also. Everything that you're experiencing right now is a thought. You know, you're not actually seeing the table, like we said. The mind has constructed a visual of the table using thinking, using a thoughts. So what you experience is a thought only. And when you know that, then you know the playing field is level. Everything is a thought. I'm not having to renounce gold. I'm not having to renounce lust. I'm not having to renounce friends. I'm not having to renounce family. I'm renouncing thought. Some thought about all of these different things. And through that renunciation, what is that? I'm taking back my power. I'm saying, no, everything that I need is within me. Everything that I'm looking for is within me. Everything I hoped for and had placed outside of myself in some distant future is within me. And so you sit, not to attain, not to grab, not to gain, garnish, whatever. You sit to get a suntan. Sit in the light of God, and you let Mother change your diaper. You let Mother clean up your mistakes. Let the divine do its thing, because you are that. You don't have to become a good person. You are the best person. You are the most loving, caring, deeply concerned person in the world. You already are the kindest, most love there is. The only thing blocking your expression of that is the narrative in your mind that says, I like that person and I don't like that person. I'm going to give to that person. I'm not even going to talk to that person, right? That's the only thing preventing you from being the most loving, open, and kind person in the world. Egoism, which is formed by attaching to mind and letting thought define you and letting thoughts create a narrative that control you and tell you this is how you act because you've always acted this way. This is what you like because you've always liked it that way. This is what you want because this is what you remember. And we get stuck. In the chapter called Master and Vijay Goswami in the Gospel, these statements are made. We worship the Brahman consciousness in the lotus of the heart, right? So that's our clue. This is where we worship. This is where the presence of God is. I think it's the Upanishads say that there's something the size of the thumb, right, that comes in through the heart there. So I always like to think that's where that little well, little bubbling fountain of pure love, the love, it comes up in a fountain because it has no direction. It goes everywhere, right? It flows out, but the mind gives it a direction, and the ego puts a nozzle on that direction, right? And then your desires open and close that nozzle to get what you want to get. It's like, oh, water, no, for you over there. Oh wait, you didn't invite me to your party. Give me that water back. Right? So that's what happens to us, and we get trapped. When we get trapped, we get sad. Why? Because we're not being who we are. We're not being loving. We're not acting in wisdom, and we're not present. We're lost, skipping back and forth between attachments and desires. So it's an invitation to come back to the moment, to come back free, to come and enjoy the presence of your divine beloved and beloved. Natural love that you cannot find in this world naturally. It exists behind the screen, an unconditioned love that flows freely, infinitely in all directions. And you are that fountain. You are that potential. And in your freedom that you find when the mind silences for that first time, and that ecstatic bliss of finally being in the moment without a single distraction throws you into an ecstatic experience of love that literally makes frozen and drooling. And you know, this is who I am. This is where I've always been. This is the beloved, everywhere present, always perfect. I surrender. Anybody have a question or a concern? Yes, sir.
What's your understanding of the third eye, refill?
Well, all of those things, what do I know? The internal eye is just that ability to see the internal world, to your internal space. Most of us, when we're told to go inside, we close our eyes and we're like, I just see red. Well, it's kind of boring. in here, right? Because we don't hang out there, we don't visit there very often. And so when you close your eyes, the first thing you do is use that eye of the mind, that inner eye to see. And you have to study your inner world. You have to go, okay, body, how does the body communicate in here? What are the boundaries of body in my internal world? And you sit there and you touch your fingers, you're like, okay, that's how the body talks to me. Right? So you do that, you kind of get this idea, those are my hands. Is it different when I touch here? No, it's still a sensation. And you just understand intimately what's my relationship with body in the internal world, right? And when you've gotten that sussed out, you know exactly how it feels, what its boundaries are in there, how it's working in there. Once you've got that all sussed out and you've seen its nature, you understand it to be separate from you. When you've got all that, you gather it into your heart and you say, I'm not the body. And you withdraw from it, right? And then you use that inner eye to look at the mind. How does the mind inform me that I'm sick? How does the mind give me an idea? How does the mind produce a desire? How does the desire connect with me? How do I get trapped into these narratives? Where does it all come from? And you start becoming very familiar, intimately familiar with these inner workings, with how these things are happening, so that you're not fooled. Because if we don't know how the mind is working in there and how it's going, then you're fighting almost an impossible battle to try and overcome desires. Because by the time you recognize that it's a desire, it's already fully grown. It's a full state of mind by that point. But if you understand that thought begins as a spark that is almost unrecognizable, but you feel it in there. And as it rises up, you realize, it was that sensation that reminded the mind of that sensation previously. That was enjoyment, and it was this object. And you sit there and you renounce it in spark form, which is easy to smudge, gone, right? But if you don't know the thing, because you're not paying attention to in here, the inner eye is closed, right? You're not paying attention to being. Then that little spark comes up, just catches, and now it's got a little tiny flame going, right? And it starts collecting other memories. Oh, he likes this. When else did we do this? Remembering how it's for you, doing whatever you were doing. And then these things, you are in a bowl of thought, and you can't see over the edge. It looks like this is all encompassing. I'm angry. I've always been angry. I can't get out of this anger, because you've let it mature into a state of mind. And now you're aware of it, even if you're out here. Now you're aware of it, and you can't do anything about it. It's too big. It's too powerful. It's gathered too many of its friends, and you're floating down the river stuck now, right? So this inner eye is, as I've seen it, as I've understood it, I didn't mean to say that. As I've understood it, that we have knowledge of how things work in there. And then you can make that final renunciation, I'm not divine. And then you have the problem of what? If I'm not this body, and I'm not this mind won't be a problem. As soon as you renounce body and mind, you become aware of the gems. That's when Thakur says, dive deep. There outside the gates lie innumerable gems, right, for you to gather.
Yeah, I agree with non-duality, Eckhart Tolle, and what you thought. I've been listening for a while. I was going to refer to you as the Ananda Swami, because I've never heard an American speak so much of bliss before.
Yeah.
That seems a lot. So I also asked, part of the third eye, or the 10th, or the Tijratil, is the 10th door. You heard referred to as the 10th door?
No, I haven't.
Well, that's the basis of my whole practice for 34 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Called Surat Yoga,
All right.
which is also part of like science, spirituality, sadhana. And it's a door that you open in stillness and travel
Okay.
internally. And go region, you can this, and you can go past that to the causal region, and then there's past the causal, past the mind is Satchittana.
Okay.
So that's maybe what you can start looking for.
Yeah, no, perfect. You know, or different traditions are going to probably present it in different ways, but it's the same subject, the same material. So if that one has given you clarity and that one is working, by all means, I'm not familiar with it. Mother's got me running down a different path apparently, but you know, if that's working for you and it's taking you forward and giving you meaning inside, absolutely run with it.
Is the tenth door and the tenth man the same? There is a story about tenth man also. That is where the tenth man, unless you turn you inside, the same thing. Is that the same similarities? I just wanted to know.
No, I think because what he's talking about is the 9 openings are the openings which we have in the body, in the gross level. And then the 10th one is the subtle one,
I see.
which is beyond, it takes you to the causal. And then that's what he's talking about, subtle and causal.
Yeah, but this is still the same thing, going inside.
Yeah.
But going through here, what he's talking about is a specific chakra, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The sixth chart.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that. But no, there's innumerable forward, but it's always going to be about the same, a description of the same
Well,
reality.
if there was a door that you could go through.
Well, there
in
is.
Meditation and travel, would that interest you?
No. Where would I go?
You never know.
If in my nature I'm everywhere present, where is there to go? It's like, that's one of my things with God. God cannot leave you. If we believe that God is omnipresent, where is he going to go? Where is she going to go? You cannot separate yourself from God. If God is Ananda, existence, bliss, if God leaves you, you're not going to know it because you're just going to snap out. You'll be snuffed out instantly.
Because part of the teaching is that in a certain space within you meet the radiant form of your teacher, and then travel. That's spirit.
So I want to go beyond that. I want to know that I am my radiant teacher, that we are married, we are one. There's no separation between us at all, which is the only boundary I experience. I want to know the oneness. I don't want another friend. I want someone else to placate, to take care of. So that's just a play on the perspective, but yeah, no, I'd like to go beyond that. I don't want anything less than oneness. Some people do. Thakur says some people want to taste sugar, they don't want to be sugar. And for those who have that interest, absolutely go to worship a deity. And then you can go to the loka with that deity and live in eternity in the company of your divine beloved. And that's perfectly fine. The Thakur encourages that if that's the inspiration of the heart. You know,
Well, part of this path is that they have what's referred to as perfect living masters. Jesus is considered a perfect living master.
Sure.
Kabir, Nanak.
Yeah. No, all that exists. All those people, you know. Yeah, absolutely. I'm too selfish for that. I want my liberation, you know, freedom. But there are the bodhisattvas. There are those people that choose to come back, to live in the dream as a being, to give light in this world. Well, yes, that's possible and open to you if that's what you are going for. Absolutely go that way, and that's probably a path that will get you there.
Chance to come back to give life to this world, was it?
Yeah, we have that account in the Great Master. He was one of the 7 suns, 7 lights in the sky, right? The 7 rishis who are constantly and mentally in meditation, sort of upholding the reality of it. And Ramakrishna says one of my favorite things there. He said when Ramakrishna was preparing to come to the planet, as the story goes, he says he came over the wall in the indivisible, visible. Okay.
Can you say that again?
He said he came over the wall of the indivisible. You know, it's something you hear the first time, you're like, yeah, what's the problem? And you think, oh, there's no visible. Here's a wall dividing it. So he crosses over this wall of the indivisible, and he comes, and there's the seven rishis, you know, these realized. What do I know of a rishi? But one of these realized beings, there were 7 stars sitting there, and he goes up and whispers into one of them, which apparently Nanda, and tells him, I'm going down. Krishna falls like a star down into this realm, and then shortly after that, Vivekananda follows and comes. So yeah, yes, he chose to come. He could have stayed there as a star, I guess. I don't. These things. When you're putting walls through the indivisible, you've left me. I don't know how to think about that. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know how to describe that. And I think that's the point, that it's not describable, probably because of the same triad that we have. Yeah, as long as there's a wall there. So, yeah. But yes, Vivekananda chose to come. And
another part of the teaching is that at the third eye, you attach yourself to an internal sound of the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word is this audible light stream. Primordial hum. Well, that makes nothingness manifest in form as a vehicle for mystic transformation. You attach to that sound, and that takes you to these other.
I have no interest in that. I bless you on your journey on that. I don't want to wander anywhere. I'm done wandering. I really just want to be the very source of love.
Yeah, well, that comes through in your case. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. So those. I sometimes tell people, you know, when I became a monk, when I became a Vedantist, when you know I was raised as a Christian. I went to seminary as a Christian to become a missionary. Missionary in West Berlin was my hope at that time. But and so that was my path. And I became very disillusioned with that, and went through my own set, and eventually we abandoned each other, as it were. And I moved on to a different idea, and I had abandoned religion altogether. I wasn't interested in it at all. I thought there's no good in it. And then Mother laughed and showed me that wasn't at all what I thought. And when I entered the monastery with Vedanta, I said I'm not going to learn. When I went to seminary, I had to learn Hebrew, and I had to learn Greek, and I had to sit there and do all this memorization, and I had blah 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 blah. And this time, when I came through, I said I'm not. That's why I'm very ignorant when it comes to Sanskrit. You know, I finally got shamed into learning into trying to study it. But my relationship with God has nothing to do with language, and nothing to do with knowledge of that type, and nothing. I'm not interested in becoming a spiritual biologist or a spiritual chemist, knowing my koshas and knowing their relationships with everything. I don't want any of that. I want my mother. And so I'm clipping through all of that and just going.
Where does that mother phrase come from?
Ramakrishna and his relationship with the Divine Mother. This in Hinduism, in the paradigm, they just say that the manifested world is feminine. And
Shakti is the mother?
Yeah, Shakti is the Divine Mother. Yes.
And why do you say that God is in the heart?
Because the scriptures say that. God is in the heart, can be found in the heart, worship in the heart. And so when you place your sense of presence in the heart, you have a place from which to watch mind. A temporary place, you got to go through, you got to transcend all of that particularity. But to transcend a particularity to begin, you have to get out of the mind. The mind, you can wander endlessly forever, thinking that you're getting somewhere, but you're dreaming.
Some would think that women have more heart than men.
Okay.
So why would Shakti be here in the heart?
Well, we're in a dream right now. So here is where, and here is where. These are just referential because we're referential. We're relational. We live in a relational world. But Shakti is actually everything, including here. But when you're doing a practice for it, a way of looking at it is that the unchanging is in the mind, the
You
constant
feel it here
form of thoughts. You do feel it there very much.
more than you feel here.
Very much.
Do you feel Shakti here?
No.
You feel Shakti here.
Yes.
That mother.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Statement of only and absolutes. This is experiential for, depending on the person. But yes, on the path that I'm following, Mother manifests here, and I place my presence here. And from there, I observe everything. I observe the mind, which is the world, and the world of thought, but without interest, without any need. Mhm.
For practical purposes of watching the mind, I find that I get into the thought of I am watching my mind. I'm trying to watch my mind without getting scooped into I am watching my mind. Could you provide some practical advice on that?
Just keep backing up. Just keep backing up. Just say, oh, I'm watching the mind, and say, I'm watching myself. Say, I'm watching the mind. I'm watching myself, watching the mind. Eventually you'll wear yourself out. But yeah, you just keep backing up. Just stay the observer, because your mind will continuously try and define you, try and put you in a box. Continually. And that's the neti practice. I'm not this. No, I'm not that. You just keep stepping back, keep stepping back, keep stepping back. And what happens is eventually you back in, as I'm going to put it in my language, you back into mother's lap. Mother can never be placed in front of your senses, because you are that. You are your own mother. So you can't. This is what makes spiritual life so confusing and so difficult for us, is because everything else that we want to learn, we put in front of our senses and we study it. With spiritual life, the thing that we want to know cannot be placed in front of the senses. But we have no idea how to do that. How do I study my own face if I can't see it, right? And so we back into it by saying, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not my story, I'm not my ego, I'm not my thinking, I'm not. And as you back into that, when you have nowhere else to go, there's going to be a flash explosion of some kind in there as this divine reality becomes apparent to you for the first time ever. It'll be like, if you touched a bare wire with 220 volts running through it, you'd be boom, that'd be quite an experience. Well, you have a bare wire in here, but running through it is an unconditioned love. And even if you touch that wire for even a bare split second, you will never forget it. And it will become the wound that St. John of the Cross talks about, the love, the kiss that Christ gives him, that leaves him a wound that leaves him constantly longing to have that embrace again, to have that kiss again, to have that intimacy again. Mother teases us that way quite a bit. I think she does it to almost everybody, because I find it to be quite a common experience, especially when you first join the monastery. That first year or two, you seem to get a lot of little gifts, a lot of little indications that, and she's been suffering for a good 10 or 15 years.
When you say you feel her here, you feel pulled down to here?
Well, if I'm not there, I do, but I'm most of the time there. Yeah, not pulled, inspired down.
But in terms of stilling the mind from chatter, do you sense of fear?
Well, stilling the mind is not my job, as far as I've seen. That's Mother's job. And so I just keep centering on the love that I feel here. The way that I hear, or a way of finding here, is to think about someone you love very much, and then abstract what you're feeling from the image of who you're feeling it for, and begin studying that feeling. Where is that coming from? What's the origin of this? Another way to do it is to sit and do your mantra in your mind, and then begin following your mantra. When the mantra becomes a habit and you don't have to sit there and think about doing it, when it's just happening in your mind, walk around it in your mind, observe it. Where is that coming from? and follow it. That also will lead you here. Right? And so you come here because this is where love manifests into this world. It's the fountain. And initially, at first, you sit there and you drink and you enjoy it, and then you get curious and you jump in.
So it's feeling, the bliss, you feel it here?
Well, it's everywhere. I mean, it becomes consuming. It doesn't just stay heartburn.
But is it a magnetic?
It's everything. It can't be magnetic because it's everywhere.
Over the heart center, is that?
Yeah, well, it's a center as long as you're outside of it. When you're in it, it's everything. You see it everywhere. It becomes your world. It replaces your inaccurate view of the world with one a little bit more accurate, where you understand that the nature of everything is love. The nature of everything is wisdom.
Yeah, well, that's, I agree with all that.
Yeah, and then you begin seeing your beloved in everyone's eyes. And so, yes, it's here when you're not there, but once you're there, it's no longer there, it's everywhere.
Only there will be some people on that who would like to ask questions.
All right, yes. Oh, also, did you have a question? Jyoti?
No, I'm just kind of offer a perspective on the Shakti, two Shaktis he was talking about as mother and Shakti. And one of the perspectives my teacher taught me was the capital S Shakti is the universal Shakti, and the little s is like this the individualized Shakti, like capital Prana is the universal prana, but there's a small p prana that's in here,
Right.
like the capital S self and the small s self. I don't know if that offers any perspective on that Shakti discussion or not.
Yeah. Yeah. In the paradigm I usually just say Brahman for that absolute unchanging, and then Shakti for the changing. But it is, no matter what path you're on, if you're a Hare Krishna, then Krishna becomes capital K Krishna and lowercase Krishna,
Right.
and Ramakrishna becomes capital R Ramakrishna and lowercase Ramakrishna. So you can do it that way, or just give it a different name. Just say Brahman is the capital K's, the capitals of everything. And Shakti or change is the lowercase of everything. And really the only difference between it is one is particular and one is, they say that you have a center point with a radius. You have one center point with an infinite radius. God has infinite center points with infinite radiuses. So that's the difference between the capital and the lowercase. Right? Sri Nisargadatta says a very entertaining thing in his book, I Am That. He says there's no problem with being attached to your body. The problem is not being attached to the body. He says the problem is that you've attached to only one body, when you are in fact every body. So as long as you see yourself as separate and apart or defined and bounded, you are in ego. You are not free. As soon as you have an infinite number of centers, as soon as you are the entirety, the wholeness, then there's no particularity. There's no I to witness. That's the one without a second, which can't be spoken of because it doesn't obey any triads. You can't fit in the mind. That's why you can't know who you are by thinking about it, because you are that. What you are cannot fit in the mind. So what do? Well, you shut the mind up, and in that silence, you know what you are, but you can't describe it. You can't put it into language. It's something vastly beyond that. So it's silence that allows you to know, not thinking, not wondering. It's absolute inner stillness that allows us to know.
Speaking of knowing, you said Mother speaks to us through a knowing. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh boy. No. No, it's it's like it's. Have you ever had the reading something in the scriptures and you're like, ah, and your feeling of it is that something has been uncovered that you've always known but have not been able to express, right? That's the voice of God. That's the experience of the voice of the beloved. So that you ask Mother a question, she doesn't tell you as a separate entity from yourself. You come to realize you've always known the answer. That's the feeling. It's like you've always known what you needed to do, but you just couldn't quite get your finger on it. And then suddenly your finger's on it. Like, oh yeah, I've known that's what needs to happen. So you go, but it's not, it's like that. It's not relative. And that's why it doesn't fit any other description. It's just an isness. This is what will happen. Does anyone online have a question? Like I look to the side and it looks like I'm not looking at anyone. Oh, there's Haima. Hello, Haima. Hello, Haima.
Hello, Swamiji. Namaste.
Hello.
Wonderful
Oh, I
lecture
can't
you
hear you. Just a
gave.
moment.
Sound is,
We're working on it.
I really enjoyed the lecture you
Oh,
gave.
wait,
It's so-
Haima, we can't hear you yet. Just a moment.
Okay.
I don't know if I really control it.
The volume of the computer? No.
Mm.
Do you know sign language?
Okay, now we are.
All right. Now we're ready.
Thank you so much for the wonderful inspirational lecture you gave this morning. The sermon, I would say. It was
Yes. Well, for you, it was a repeat, right?
a little bit, but it's great to hear again and again and again. We need
Yeah,
to hear
oh, good.
more often.
That's why we're friends, Haima.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yes.
Yeah, you were in a warmer weather. We're in a colder weather here in Denver, 48.
Oh, don't for a minute. Don't believe it. Cold in Colorado is dry and thin.
It is.
Here at 60 degrees, I'm freezing to death.
Oh, really? I saw the pictures. You've been enjoying Atlanta. That's great.
Oh, yes, very much.
Yeah, you will like the Stone Mountain when you go there. I think you already been there, Stone Mountain. right?
No.
You're going today. Okay. Well,
Right.
thank you so much. It's a great
We're going
lecture.
at 2 o'clock today, and temperature's supposed to be high 50s, so anyone who wants to come.
Anyone that wants to freeze at 50, come along.
Wait till the sun comes along. We'll be glad for the winter.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure. We're talking as if I live here. All right. Any other curiosities, corrections, hopes, dreams, jokes?
Oh, yeah, I have a question.
Sir.
When you stay in the present moment, and you are in the awareness, and it becomes a practice, and then you go deeper into it, what happens after that? Like feeling, what is the experience?
Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat because when there's stillness, there's no experience. There's just an isness to it. Of course, the particularization is there for a long time. I really don't know. Let's say that. In the silence, to me, I'm still picking up gems. I haven't really gone beyond that. So, the only thing I can tell you is you become aware of some of the things that you can't be aware of, and when you're indulging in thinking, things like your eternity. You can't experience eternity outside of silence. You have to shut everything down. Mind will force you on a line. And for eternity, you have to be on the point. Right? You see, the absolute unchanging is the present moment, because that moment, there's no space for a past or a future there. There's just an unchanging reality. And you say, well, how is it that everything changes? I'm answering a question nobody asked. But I always think of it the way that the experience feels is when you're watching a movie, there's no change in a movie. I mean, no movement in a movie, It's all stillness. There is no change there. So how to change in a movie? Well, the mind captures the present frame and holds it. And when it sees the new frame, it sees difference. And there's a section of the mind that creates ego, a narrative. And it says, this is why that is different now. And it produces movements to explain the change, the perceived change, right? So to watch a movie, you're actually present because you would just see one still shot after another. That's all you would see. To watch a movie, you have to be in ego state, because ego is composed completely of the past. And so by being in ego state, you sit on the very edge of the past and you look at the present, which is the next frame. And there you get the story. There's where you get the change. That's where you get the narrative, right? But if you come directly to the present moment, there's no observation of it. There is no calculation in it. There is no plan in it. There is spontaneity in it. And in that spontaneous state of being purely over the marker point of the present alone, there's no change, and everything is happening in an instant, and there's no thinking or conception or ownership of it at all. It's just isness, right? And that's silence, because you can't have a thought in the moment. The thought also, by the time you have a thought, you're in the past, right? In the moment, thought would have to be instantaneous, and thought is not instantaneous. The only thing that's instantaneous is presence, existence. You sit there, and that's why a real life make a wrong move, because there is no room for ego in the present, right? And so that which moves or inspires the saint is spontaneous. He knows spontaneously what to do from his nature of love, wisdom, and being. There is no action, there is no plan, there is no mind, no active mind in that.
Swami,
Yes, sir.
regarding the experience, suppose in dream, we don't know what is it when you are in deep sleep. So there is no experience. But when you go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, so still there is a silence and there is a shunya. But I don't know whether you understand shunya itself is an experience.
Not in Nirvikalpa. In Nirvikalpa, that's devoid of experience, because that's oneness. So there's no experiencer there. So that wouldn't be that. With deep sleep, that's a state of tamas. It can look like Nirvikalpa Samadhi. It can have all of the same qualities of it, but its cause is ignorance. Its cause is tamas. Whereas in enlightenment, the cause is free. There is no cause, because there is no cause and effect at that point. And so that is the sattva, or that you've even transcended sattva. You've gone beyond the gunas, highest state. So yeah, no, in the highest state, there's no experiencer. There's no, because you're not on a line anymore. You are present at that point. You are that. That's how they say it, because you're just, you can't actually name it. Just like, you're that. Wherever it is. Did that answer or make any sense? Sort of.
You also said earlier, God does not keep a record of your wrongs.
Yes.
That reminded me of something I've heard before. I think it's from the Gita, where he says, for those who accept me with unfailing devotion, I see no sinner. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I like it. Is that a good enough bell? Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. God doesn't see it because God sees you when he looks at you. He sees your ideal of yourself when he looks at you. Okay. Let me go search for it. Yeah. No, I suspect it's there. But yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's only God within God, within God, within God. Right. It's funny, I had this, just since we're sitting here and we've got time. I think anybody can go anytime, so don't feel forced. Now I can't remember what I was going to say. What was I talking about?
God within God.
Oh, God within God, within God. Yeah, the dream. I don't know what I was going to say, but there's others put in there. I was Tibetan. They did not like this idea at all. But I'll throw it out to you and see what you think about it. I have this notion like, okay, so we are experiencing the dream of God right now, since we're not in a material world, since there is no such thing as a material world. That's just our egoistic interpretation of this reality. God, we are a thought in God's mind. So Swami C is a thought in God's mind. I'm not actually a person. I'm a thought in the mind of God. And God is actually attached to me because God has become me. And we know that when you attach to something, you share your Chitananda with it. Sat Chitananda, becoming Bengali. Shat Chitananda with it. And that's what gives me my sense of existence. That's what gives me my sense of love and being, God's attachment to me. And that my efforts to free myself is actually a mirror image of God freeing herself, from her attachment to this. And so in the mind of God, I'm voices that argue, right? When she tries to do something, I'm one of the ones that says, no, we need that third piece of cake. We need it really badly right now, right? This is the microcosm in the macrocosm also, the fractal of the divine all the way down. It's that within me, I have another universe and I have beings. Oh, I don't remember what I was going to say. It's a perfect intro. That I have the thoughts in my mind are quite possibly another being who's experiencing another universe. And I am their God who has identified with that thought and is now giving them my Satchitananda that I have borrowed from God who is attached to me in my mind. And so on and on and on it goes. But the ultimate thing collapses into a unity when that oneness kind of zips all the way up the line, and everything kind of falls apart at that point. And so, well, they're just taking this in and out of my mind. Yes.
When you were in the Christian tradition, did you refer to God as mother?
No.
So where did that come from? Is that part of the tradition that you're, as a monk, they refer to God as mom, mother?
No. I refer to, why do I do that? I think because in 1999, I met a saint, Prabhajika Moksha Prana, and she gave me everything that I have. And she was my mother. I felt and was experienced from her a love so complete.
You're perfectly nested.
What's that?
You're perfectly nested.
Yes, that's how I feel, but that's just my own personal expression. But yes, and so she passed away my second year in the monastery. But she was that and gave me everything. So to me, instantly, the beloved became my mother. But not only my mother. I sometimes I sing with Jesus in my mind. Sometimes I get a little enchanted with Krishna dancing in the wood. Sometimes, I sit in the arms of my beloved by a little creek in a meadow somewhere. So the beloved can be all of that and represent he, she, that will always represent to you as your highest ideal of love. That.
Were there other monks that were surprised that you were referring to mother?
No, not within this tradition. Not within this tradition.
You didn't have the same experience with that.
No. But Ramakrishna, I mean, there is Kali, or there's many goddesses, and all of the gods and goddesses in India, they adhere to those goddesses, will see them as the absolute also. So like they have the capital letter and the lowercase letter, like that. In Christianity, God is Father and the soul is feminine. Everybody has a feminine soul. There is no man in Christianity but Jesus or but God, and that marriage with Jesus is between your feminine soul and his masculine isness.
Krishna also says the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. Yeah, in Vrindavan, there's no men. That's right. Exactly right. Krishna is the only man in Vrindavan. So everybody is a consort, a gopi.
Can you tell us more about this woman?
There's not a whole lot to tell. She was the president, I think the second president, Sharda Mat. There's in the Ramakrishna tradition, two organizations, the women's organization and the men's organization. So there's the Sharda Mat and Belur Mat, right? And so Belur Mat is for the men and run by the men, and Sharda Mat is for the women and run by the women. Unfortunately, Sharda Mat hasn't really busted out of India too much. I guess they've gone to Sri Lanka and Australia. That's as far as they've busted out of India. So that's why most of us are not familiar with them. But when you put Vedanta society and you think it's a patriarch, the reason is because it's a men's organization and it is in fact a patriarchal nightmare. But don't be discouraged because there's a matriarchal nightmare as well. You know, you can experience that in the Sharda. And that was my first experience. I had no knowledge of Vedanta at the time. I had no interest in religion at the time. And I won't go into the specifics because it's not proper, but plenty of people know it because I'm very improper often. Yeah, and so I went to see her, and I don't know what you call it. I call it a vision. I don't know what else to call it. I've nowhere to put it because I have nothing else.
Here or in India?
I went to India. I went to India as a tourist. Yeah, boy, was that a crazy experience. I had no idea what was there. I'd never been there, and all the posters I saw looked quite nice. And so I went to India thinking I was going to be sipping chai on Mr. porticos, watching the sunset over the Ganges. Thought, great American to go, I should be there. I got there and found out that it was a very different experience and that God had very different ideas about what was going to be done with that. So I went to see her because my friend Philip said she was enlightened and he wanted to go have her darshan because he was a devotee. I wasn't. No enlightenment, darshan, but I was in India. I should go. Do you mind if I go? And he said, no, come along. And so I went. And yeah, I'll tell you one-on-one if you're interested at some point of that experience. I don't want it to be recorded and put on the internet. So.
You had a similar experience like Chidbrahmananda.
I don't.
Chidbrahmananda also, he was a reporter to start with. And he went to expose all these ashrams and all those things. And then he became a,
Wow. Yeah, in that case, then I did. I don't know what that means, but yeah, it was I went from being to any religious person, I was an untouchable. Let's just put it that way. At that point in my life, and I didn't care. I would have come up and touched you on purpose, just to bother your religious perspective. So that's where I was at that time, and just that one trip, just 10 minutes actually. It comes down to 10 minutes that I had with Mokshaprana in a monastery. And when I did that, when I joined the monastery, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I met 5 people on that trip in India. It's a whole story, but I met 5 people on that trip, and each one of those 5 people gave me a little piece to my inner puzzle that I was missing entirely, had no idea about. I got those 5 pieces, didn't recognize my own self. I told when we were walking one day, I said, my mind is still mine. I just feel like somebody went in there and moved all the furniture about 6 inches in another direction. So I'm constantly bumping into my own thoughts, seeing how unnatural they are and how odd and obtuse they are. I said, it's a very odd experience. I said, I'm still me, but I don't fit anymore in me. And I remember telling him on the last day of our trip, we were walking along, and I said, in all my life, I've never been inspired. Old age was always something and dreaded. And I said, on this trip, I've met 5 people that were so beautiful in their old age, in a way that they could never have been when they were young. And I told him, I said, it's very clear to me more clear than it's pretty much in my life. That if you are living according to the purpose of life, you will be more beautiful when you're old than you ever dreamed when you were young. And I said, all 5 of these were in gold, in Garower, in orange. I said, I don't really know, but I know that that's what I'm going to become. Good thing I didn't know what that entailed. I'm really not sure that I would have had the courage to undertake it had I known what I was doing. But I was just kind of thrown in the pond and still don't know what I'm doing, but I haven't drowned yet. I'm hoping. In that sense. Charlie, thank you. Jai Ma, Jai Thakur, Jai Swamiji, Jai Buddha, Jai Jesus, Jai you, Jai me, Jai. Be free and go forward. What do I do now?